Bang on time. There we
time.
are. Well done, folks. Michael here.
Rupert here.
Rupert here. And although it may look as if Rupert is actually in another room, just to prove that he ain't. Cheers, folks. And welcome. We need to say hello to Janice, Margaret, and Dave, and Diorman, who've already made themselves known to us. Please, if
Good
you're
evening,
watching,
folks.
and we can see that there's 14 of you already, 16 indeed. Just type a comment wherever you are on Facebook, the page, the community, on YouTube, or even on Periscope. Just let us know that you're there. Very glad that you are indeed. Yeah. Cheers, Margaret.
Hello, Margaret.
It seems like we're getting Facebook messages twice, but that's all right. We can cope.
We can cope.
We can cope with that. Yeah. Hello, Martin. Oh, hello, Martin. Very good. Nice to
Hi,
see
Martin.
you. A previous Stonehead of the Month,
Indeed.
I do believe.
Do you know? I'll tell you what's funny for me.
What's that?
Because this. Have we done a live before, sitting next to each
Yes,
other?
we have actually once. Yeah.
It's just the weirdest thing is that I've got two of you, and I hadn't really clocked that before. That you do something out of one eye, and I'm seeing it in the other eye as well.
Yes. I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
However, so yeah, very good. Oh, right. And Heidi, hello there.
Hello, Heidi. Hello, Catherine.
Yeah, Catherine. Nice to see you all. So, what we're going to kick off with?
What are we going to kick off with? Well, I think we should probably kick off with. Is it too early in the evening to kick off with Welcome Home from Orkney?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I'm just gonna. Do you know what I was going to say? Though?
What were you going to say?
The last podcast, the timeline thing.
Oh yes.
I don't know how many of you folk out there listened to the last podcast about timelines, and we're trying to pull everything together and give what was going on in this country a context for what may have been going on in other parts of the country, and just it's one of those things for the future that we're actually trying to do, because if you go out on the internet, you're not looking for a timeline that really pulls things together and tells you what was going on contemporaneously with, say, Stonehenge or Avebury, or even further back, and the Nessa Brogger and that kind of thing. What was going on in the rest of the world? There ain't much out there that puts it in a picture, and that's something that we're trying to do, and something that will be coming your way possibly later in the year.
Yeah, it's actually. It's surprisingly difficult to pull it all together. I was working on that for ages. And because the information is so disparate. And one of the things that I got from it, which is it's almost irrelevant to everything that we actually deal with most of the time, but it's the fact that the last mammoths actually became extinct at more or less the same time as the Thera eruption that destroyed Santorini and all of that.
How many years BC?
1650, 1640.
Yeah. Okay. So you didn't. That's something you probably, didn't think of.
So
before.
it makes you wonder. Did that eruption actually have something to do with their final demise? Don't know.
Oh,
it's possible.
Yeah. It may not have. We may not have been the ultimate culprits there. Yeah. So that kind of thing's coming up, and lots. You're full of surprises. Have to say, if you've been, if you did listen to the podcast, then you'll know that delving into the timeline has been full of surprises. So, so watch this space. But it's promising to be. I mean, it has been busy. It always promised to be busy because we did put things in the diary this year.
Yeah.
And I've just come back from Orkney, from South Ronaldsay, as many of you know, and you'll be quizzing me about that.
I will.
And next week we're Rupert's going back home, but then I'm going down to join him so that we can do some filming down in the south of France for a week. And come back with something from there. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, it's another illustration of the fact that we're used in Britain particularly, we're used to loads of sites, Neolithic sites and megalithic sites, being tucked away in out of the way places, because they're the places where farming is no longer. Or
that's the hello Anthony Murphy sign. No, or whatever.
Sorry, folks. But because they're the places like Dartmoor, our best example. The places where you can't farm anymore, and the sites because the plough hasn't ripped them down. Farmers can't get their machinery up there, so the sites are left as they are. Well, you go to places like the Pyrenees and the foothills of the Pyrenees, where there isn't any farming to speak of. They can grow vines, nothing else. There's no ploughing to be done. Yeah. So there are sites left there, and because the French don't deal with archaeology the same way we do. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Yeah. So there are sites that they're registered, they're known about, but they're not touched, they're not excavated, don't know anything about them. But there's loads of them, and so we're making a film about the fact that it really illustrates the ubiquity of them all. They're everywhere. Yeah. So as soon as you start spreading into the other areas where farming has been active, so there's nothing to find. Well, it's when you go into these pockets, in out of the way places, and you see quite how many there are, that you realise that they really were everywhere.
John Swift says, I much prefer BP for timelines. Adding or subtracting 2,000 years seems absurd. Point taken, I think.
I agree with you. Yeah. It's convention, isn't it, really, that we've had... well, for those of us who are of a certain age, BC was what
age would that
we
be
all... We're 27. BC was what we...
Guess our ages. Go on.
Sure, that is so asking for trouble.
Yeah.
I tell you, if I come out worse, you're buying the beer.
Yeah.
But I do think that you're right, and we should use. Should we make that a convention? Should we try to make that a convention?
I think it would be helpful to people. Yeah, as long as it depends what people are ingrained in. What's they're used to hearing, I suppose. But then again, if you just do what people are used to, then nothing ever changes and gets some clarity. I'm not obsessed with marking the beginning of the Christian era myself at all.
I'm a lapsed heathen. I mean, I have no sympathies at all. Thank you, John. I think we'll take that as a noted point, and we'll make that the convention then.
Hello, Nikki from Worcester.
Hello, Nikki.
Anthony Murphy seems to be crying. It's having troubles. Rosie, Sister Rosie, that is.
Hello, Rosie.
Hi there. Thank you for being with us. Michael. Yes, Martin asks, Michael, did you go to Nick Card's talk for the Orkney Archaeology Society last Thursday? You were up there as well, Martin, of course, yes. To be honest, I had planned to, but I was so bushed at the end of what was day 2, grovelling away with my trowel, that I passed. In the sure and certain hope that the video of the talk would become available, and it has. So if I haven't already posted links to that on Facebook, I haven't watched it yet myself, but I was sad to miss it. But I was done for. And it's a fair old drive from up to Kirkwall from down there across.
It's not 5 minutes, is it?
It's not 5 minutes at all.
You look on the map; it doesn't look far, but
it's a very pleasant drive. But I had to find food, and I had to. Yeah, I won't go on.
For those of you that haven't got a clue what Michael is talking about, talking to those who are in the know, driving from South Ronaldsay, which is where Michael was doing the digging, round to Kirkwall. It's going significantly north and then west and then south again to actually do the loop. How far is it in miles?
From where to where?
From where you were camping.
Oh, right.
To Kirkwall.
It's about 15 miles, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's not 5 minutes on an island road, is it?
No, it's half an hour. Yeah. Easy half an hour. Driving over Scapa Flow.
Yeah. Mike's old knees can't handle a whole day of being down on the ground anyway.
Actually, they didn't hold out too badly. It's a day when you've. It's the wind actually does your head in. When you spend a day in the wind, in the open and stuff, when you're not used to it.
Yes.
But I survived. I was fine. I did my share. Shay, thanks for the heads up on that. Yes, I'm aware. This is the first time that we've posted simultaneously to the Facebook page and to the Facebook community. So that may be a strange anomaly of getting 2 links each time, getting 2 comments each time. Somebody says it may be an anomaly to do with that. Thank you. And yes, hello from Spain.
Oh, wow.
Nice, yeah, great stuff. Hello
Welcome.
to you too. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, definitely.
Much appreciated. Martin says, yeah, it's a half-an-hour drive.
There you
So
go.
cool.
Yeah.
I said going to go to France, and then I'm going on another dig. I'm going on to Tim Darville's sister's Longbarrow dig for a week.
I have a tentative invite to go to a later stage of that later in the month, and I really don't know if I'm going to be able to make it.
Oh man, yes, of course,
yeah.
yeah. And then, of
We'll
course, and forgive us for plugging this like mad, in September, we are 2 weeks on tour with our happy group, whoever they may be.
Hi, Jacek. Jacek.
Yes,
Jacek.
yes,
Jacek.
yeah,
I've been saying it wrong for
Jacek.
years. Jacek.
Jacek. Okay.
Jacek.
Very good. Hello again. This time we see you and we acknowledge you, Jacek. Yeah, I think you must have missed the end of the call last time. That's why we didn't say hello. Yeah, September.
Yes, the tour. There are still a few places left, and it's going to be a great tour. We're looking at it all the time. Looking at things that we need to bone up on, because there's a couple of days when, because we have deliberately put this thing together as the epic adventure, that there's a couple of days when we are we're covering a lot of ground in the coach. And so Michael and I are boning up on all the stuff we can point at along the way.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot. There is a lot.
Oh, thank you, Jacek. That was close to perfect Polish. Evidently, our English was close to whatever. So if any of you, how many of you are watching? Oh, 25. We got an audience of 25, Rupert.
And we've only just started.
That's excellent job. Yeah. We've got a promo video on the Facebook page and on YouTube as well about the tour. Basically, it's 2 weeks, starting in Orkney, going to Nessa Brogga, Skara Brae, Tomb of the Eagles,
Maze Howe,
down to the recumbent stone circles, and down across to Cumbria, Long Meg, Castle Rig. What else is down there?
Arbor
on the way down, and we end up in Stratford upon Avon, just down the road.
We're going
here.
to Wayland Smithy, Devil's Quoit.
Okay. And Mo says hello on the other thread. I see what you mean, Shay, that the folks you're getting doubled up, and folk on the other feed aren't getting a look in. I see. Okay. So take note, guys. If you're watching on the community, your comments may not be getting through. Is that the way around it's happening, Shay? Thanks for giving us the heads up on that. Yeah, so we're coming down to Stratford, going to the Roll Rights and Bellasnap here.
Bellasap,
and then we're proceeding down to Wiltshire.
Then down to Wiltshire. We're actually staying in Salisbury, but once we get to Wiltshire, the end of the tour is we've got a private thingy we've got sunrise at Stonehenge.
We have, yeah. That's booked for the 21st?
Is it the 21st or is it the 20th or the 21st?
One of those. One or the other, yes. Yeah. And, we're hoping for an actual sunrise.
A proper sunrise. Fingers crossed, you never know.
For our group. So it's a mega tour. And there are links all over the place. So, folks, the message is thank you, Shay, for the heads up, that if you're watching on the community, head on over either to the Facebook page, Standing with Stones page, or go to YouTube. You'll get. We're seeing comments and questions from YouTube. Talking of comments and questions, don't be backward in coming forward with questions. We like very much the questions.
We do like questions.
And if we can't answer questions now, we can always save them for the podcast, can't we?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Actually, we could do that.
Yeah. We could declare our ignorance and say...
Oh, yes, we won't lie and tell you that we do know when we don't. That would be wrong.
Yeah. Very wrong.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're going to show me a trowel? Prove that it's dirty?
Let me ask for it.
Yeah, just don't stab me with it. They're quite sharp.
Yeah, I mean, really, if I was a real archaeologist, I would have cleaned this by now.
Do you know what? You really wouldn't.
Really? There is. It was actually seen action.
See that mud on there? 2,000 years old, that is.
Yeah. I don't know if folk can see. You see the manufacturer's name is Tyzac. But if you see that, can you see that? Oh, God, finger. That mark there, it is the 3 legs of man.
Do you know what?
Tyzac, I think, comes from the Isle of Man.
Do you know what?
Which is where I came from too. Huh?
You should go and clean it.
I should, or else it'll go funny. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
there
Michael from the Isle of Man.
Orkney
if
dirt.
You didn't know.
Yes. So ask me questions.
Ask you questions. I'll ask you what the folks want to know.
What does Ronnie mean? I love Rupert's Muttley style giggle.
You know what? I have been called Muttley so many times. I thank you. I'll take it as a compliment. I know. I can't help it. Still, it's not as bad as Jimmy Carr's laugh.
No, that's right. It looks like a pilum. Apparently, I presume you're talking about the trowel, Heidi.
Maybe.
Very good.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Tell everybody what a broch is, because a lot of them don't know.
A broch is something that dates large to the Iron Age, which is, out of our usual sort of time scale.
Hello, Angel.
Basically about 2,000 years on from the period, the megalithic period that we like to think we deal with, because we're talking about Brochs, anything from 300 BC. Sorry,
so 2,300 BP.
2,300 BP to 2,000 BP or 1,900 BP. So
really 1900? I thought they.
Oh yeah, after
okay.
Yeah, but a broch particularly is a tower built in the Iron Age. They are predominantly, or even exclusively, I should say, they occur in the northeast of Scotland, particularly on Orkney and on Shetland. And they are really substantial, on average, they are really substantial buildings. Very thick-walled. We believe somewhere, averaging around about 9-10 meters tall. They vary. The interior space varies from a circular space with a hearth in the middle perhaps and radiating rooms, and to the Cairns Broch, which is where I was, which has a more arbitrarily divided centre space with slab stone erected on edge to provide dividing rooms.
Martin's just said there's a very good Broch near Cairns.
Oh, really?
So they do spread west.
Yeah. Okay. But when you look at the map and you look at the
concentrations,
density,
I was amazed how many there were on Shetland.
Yeah,
That really surprised
absolutely.
me.
Oh, hello, Graham.
Hello,
Welcome,
Graham.
you are.
Yes.
Welcome, you are. Do join in if you can. And Samantha, good to see you too. So a Broch, and also interior-wise, they can have one or two levels. The Cairns Broch, which I was on, has 5 metre thick walls. Think on that for a moment. 5 metre thick walls, and a staircase inside the wall that gives you would have given you access to the upper levels. They were roofed. They did have windows, and by and large, they would have been encircled by other habitations. Either, village-wise, perhaps butting up against the, also made of stone, butting up against the Broch walls. There.
Got loads of comments pouring in here.
Yeah, this is the trouble. We're too popular. We've got many viewers who are very enthusiastic, and we thank you for it.
Yeah, so apologies if we missed them. They're kind of flying off the page.
That is the thing.
Something that I find interesting. I mean, I might be kind of talking out of turn. I don't know. I'm not going to apologise.
Very briefly, Ronnie Adams' question: what they mean when they say BCE? It means
before the Christian era.
Before Common Era. No, because that would be silly. Because we know BC was before Christ, but the BCE is to avoid the religious connotation. It's before Common Era. It's a very clever little.
Okay, well that's not at all what I learnt.
Oh, really?
But either way,
yeah,
we're talking
it's
about the
same
same time
thing.
period. It's still BC.
Yes,
It's just.
Yeah, I thought the point was to avoid the in a
well,
multicultural.
Yes, but as soon as you say before the Christian era,
yeah,
then it's just giving it a timeline that, rather than saying before Christ. You're not spouting a belief. But whichever.
I think latterly it's been referred to as before Common Era.
Maybe.
Yeah, so it's inclusive.
I'll go with John now.
Yeah.
It's BP now is our convention.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes. Yeah, I might be talking out of turn, and I won't apologise. But you were talking about not far from the Broch, just up from the Broch. There's the Neolithic encampment, which hasn't been excavated.
Yes.
Which I find quite exciting because it shows that people have been living on the same spot, barring moving a certain amount of meters.
Yeah.
Go on, yummy.
Yes. To prove the point. Okay. So your question was...
I'll hold you point.
Oh, all right. This is a geophys scan taken, I think it's 1999 or thereabouts.
Isn't it funny doing it backwards?
Where's that dated to? Oh, no, sorry, that's the 2018 scan. But here is the Broch area here. And how, this is that black sort of conglomerate here. Would you believe is a Neolithic settlement that has not been excavated? It's there under the. They've dug a few test. What you call it?
Trenches.
Trenches, not trenches specifically. Holes, things. You know what I mean.
Holes in the ground.
To verify the presence of a settlement there, and who knows? Maybe you've got another Skara Brae sitting under the turf there.
So how many metres away from the Broch is that?
It really isn't far at all, isn't there? It's a scale.
It's like the end of the garden, isn't it?
I mean, it's 50 metres.
Yeah. So the point is that people have been living on that spot.
Yeah.
For Neolithic. So what? At least 5,000 years ago.
And also told that down here, this is a Bronze Age settlement.
There you go.
How about that? So there we go.
So that's at least 4,000 years in habitation on the same spot. It's exciting.
Yes.
But it's intriguing.
And it says in Spanish we say A-N-E. Antes de nuestra.
Okay.
Yeah, before the new era. Nuestra?
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 Or is that nueve? I don't know. Translate that. Oh, literally before our era. There you go.
Oh, before. Of course.
Thank you, Annie.
Nostra, yeah.
It's curious that the walls of the Brochs, I mean, what an engineering feat that you have the staircases and what have you within the walls.
Yes.
When they're essentially dry stone walling. I mean,
yes, there's no mortar at all.
No, it's breathtaking. Really.
Not only that, but it's that our Broch was built on a 1 in 20 slope on the hillside, and they had to dig in to create a flat plateau before the tower could be started. That would incorporate not only the tower but also the some of the buildings of the village around. Yeah. So yeah, I'm told by Martin Carruthers, the site director, that the levelling of that tower is such that, and the levelling of that site on the 1 in 20 is such that there is no variation, the more than about 2 centimetres from brick run to brick run. So it's a fascinating.
I know
feat
houses that aren't built that well.
Yes. It is a brilliant piece of engineering and what's the word?
I don't know. I'm just going to sit here and watch you suffer.
Yeah, suffering now. A stonework, more
Architecture?
No, work with stone masonry. Thank you.
He's older than me.
Listen, I tell you, I'm talking about the Broch. I'm talking about the Broch dig, and this is the great thing about doing the video live rather than the podcast. We can blooming show you. I've got a fantastic 3D representation of the Broch, and I'll show you that right now. How about that? I'm just moving it round now. There you are. So obvious there is the internal space, which is 11 metres across.
Can you go more aerial so they can see the thickness of the walls more clearly?
Yeah. There. So that's the interior space, which is 11 metres across. And there you can really see how the interior space was divided quite, it seems, arbitrarily, with these upright orthostats, which sort of make it look sort of monumental when you stand in there. You think sometimes you think you're standing in a stone circle of some sort. But no, this space was used for habitation. Where the cursor is right now, there is a hearth. I think there's another one over here. Also, just here, where my cursor is hovering there, that's the entrance to a well that has been dug down 2 meters straight down into the rock. So,
that's a good point to make, that you've got to bear in mind that on Orkney there's no significant sort of topsoil or that kind of soft strata. It is digging down into solid rock. So anything significantly into the ground is a major piece of work.
Yes. I had the privilege of going down into that well, and it's got 7 steps down to what would have been the water level. And it's inside that well, in the detritus at the bottom, which turned out to be bonus for archaeologists. It turned out to be anaerobic, so it preserves organic material. They found a wooden bowl, a beautiful wooden bowl made of alder. Look, if we sit closer together, the nice people can still see us in the little window there. Hello. Which had been broken and mended using copper ore staples, little copper ore.
It's amazing, really.
Yeah. We'll provide links. No, we won't, because this is the live. We do that on the podcast. But if when it comes to the podcast, we'll provide some links. And of course, you'll be able to find this if you do a search for Cairns Broch. at the.
Show them the wall you uncovered.
Well, yes. In here it is not uncovered yet, but when I was on site, this is before I think this season started. Oh, it's behind. No, it's not. It's just there. This little strip here, just on the edge of that green there. When we arrived there, that had been freshly stripped back by the digger, like they'd do on Time Team, get the digger in and pull the topsoil back. Because one thing that we're really wanting to investigate and solve, Graham, that's not all. There's loads. There's a souterrain, if you're interested. I think it's David that who's not here.
It is David.
That would have a connection.
It is David.
So that little strip there was my little strip, and that's what I concentrated on for 3 days. And if I go horizontal, if I go over again, so you see this line of walling here, which is one wall of one of the exterior habitations or rooms or whatever it was. They were interested to find out if that wall extended beyond, and I have had the privilege of exposing the wall that went. Oh, you can't see because it's behind our things. Sorry. That bit of wall there, that line of wall, they wanted to see if that extended, and I was able to uncover the rest of that wall and confirm that indeed it does extend there. All with my trowel and a mattock. Other things to note, going back to aerial view, are these recesses into the wall and here. And the entrance is quite colossal. Approximately here, where I'm wiggling the cursor, and here are massive door jambs. So you could put a wooden doors at two places.
Will the
there.
scan let us actually go into that?
Let's see. Yeah, where are we going?
Just in there, so you can see where the door jambs would have gone.
Let's have a look. Oh my word!
Yeah, there you go. Fantastic.
You can sort of see the door jambs themselves. Oh well, good call. Yeah, one jam there, and another one there, and behind. You don't think you can see? I'll try zooming in. Oh, this is good, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, behind that. Oh God, I've gone underground. That last door jamb, there's recesses for a timber brace to be slid in and out of the wall, so that to make it extra thing. So yeah,
It's very cool.
very, very cool indeed. So I was very pleased to be there. Ask me more questions if you want to know more.
What, me or?
I think the other thing to note is,
Ronnie, yeah.
head blown, excellent. I'm so pleased. That's great. Yeah. You can find this on the net. I'm just feeding this straight from the University of the Highlands and Islands website. I think should be able to find this and explore for yourselves. Yeah. How tall would this structure have been? The central tower would be about 9 meters, so pretty tall. Yeah. Don't worry, Catherine. You're welcome being here.
So you're talking about three-story house height, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I'm glad you're enjoying that, folks.
Mm.
Cool. Let's go back to. If you shout loudly enough, I'll show you more of the 3D representation.
Probably a better screen view.
Yeah. But one thing Martin Carruthers, the site director, is at pains to point out, they've been on the site for 13 seasons already, and his angle of approaching this is that for once they're going down on a a stony site, a bump in the ground, as it were, not looking to see what people owned, what people had. The finds they're finding are great, and if you find spectacular objects, etc., they stand in their own right. But the difference is that Martin is focusing on what the Broch can tell us about the landscape and the use of the landscape, how the lives were being lived and how they were utilizing the landscape. So he's viewing the Broch not as a hoard of finds, but as a trap for bringing, for examining the landscape around. What from the landscape has been brought in? What can you tell from all this as to what these people were doing in the actual landscape, not what they were doing in their home? So that's the focus of it. It's very different and fascinating to see.
It's an interesting extinction when you think that, from a pure archaeological point of view, why people get so upset about metal detectorists who just basically dig stuff up and take it home. Is that an artifact out of context? All right, it might be a pretty artifact, but as soon as you take it out of context, it means nothing.
Zilch.
You've got no information about who owned it, how it was used. So if you take, for example, one of the things that we know with, take some of the greenstone axe heads, that we know that they were put into burials completely unused. And that tells you that this is a reverential thing, that this really was an important thing to own. Now, if you imagine that somebody comes along and they just dig this thing out of the ground and take it home, then, okay, you've got a nice axe head, but you would never have known that it wasn't a tool. All you'd know that it was an axe head, that you were lucky you got one in good condition. And so, that's the importance of context. So to take this, as you say, Martin looking to see what's been brought in, to see how the outside environment was actually affecting people's lives, or how people were integrating with the environment. That's an extension of that context, isn't it? It's a much richer way of looking at the whole thing.
Yes, and of course that is the big thing.
Sorry, I'm just ignoring what you're doing. What's that you were just showing?
Well, I'm
people?
just about to show that because I saw a little notice from Martin Carruthers, who's in charge of the dig, and he posts regularly to, if you want to visit, it's an open group, Facebook Friends of the Cairns Broch. If you do a search for that on Facebook, it'll come about. Yeah, I think that was the thing.
Pleasure, Anais.
Yeah. That was hammered home to me as as being on a course, is that individual artifacts, individual finds mean nothing, which is why archaeological digs are, not to put too fine a point on it, are absolutely anal about recording every single aspect of every single find. I can't begin to go into the detail of it, but it involves numbers, it involves description, it involves drawing, it involves photography, so that everything has a totally precise location in 3D and in relationship to all the other finds. It's only in relation to other finds that a story can be told, that an explanation or a meaning extrapolated from archaeological finds. And of course the fact, but the very act of making the discovery, the very act of excavation is destructive. You cannot, in order to find out, in order to dig down through these structures, they have to be to a certain extent destroyed. So the job of archaeology is to record with such precision, so anybody coming after can essentially recreate what was there before. because it can't be investigated in the same way again.
Yeah. I think you should read Margaret's comment now.
Margaret's, the idea that the upper floors were used to air dry fish, mutton, game or whale meat for storage after use. This could be make the usage seasonal. Dried flesh can be eaten without further cooking. Absolutely. So that's your idea, Margaret. I think that's a good one, and if you forgive the pun, it's worthwhile airing.
Or another one, it's food for thought.
Okay, cool. Look, before I forget, I'm just going to, because this very moment, Martin Carruthers, I noticed, posted into Facebook friends of the Cairns Broch.
What's that say?
It's a Broch. It says Broch bling. A bronze ring from around the central hearth of the West Room. Brilliant. Yeah. So you get an idea of scale there, but that is bronze. They'll be thrilled there when things like that come up. They'll be whooping.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah, Ron is just making the point there about some detectorists are really good, really responsible, and report their finds and log the positions and all the rest of it very carefully. Sadly, an awful lot don't. They're just out for what can they find on their weekend, and they're the ones that actually cause the damage. It's
from an archaeological point of view.
Going
on from what Margaret said, dare I mention fish?
I think you should. I found it really, actually, for me, the most exciting thing of all of it.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did.
Who would have thought fish would excite, or the absence of fish?
Absence of fish.
I was told by Dan Lee, our course director, that the oddity was, I don't know if this is just particular to the Cairns Broch or to Broch inhabitants generally on South Ronsley, Orkney or wherever, but I was told that there was no evidence of the consumption of fish. That these people were not eating fish. They were eating land-based animals, certainly, and grain and other stuffs. But fish, it seems, they were avoiding, which is a colossal, because the view from the Broch, how many yards from the sea is it?
It's not, is it?
It's not. It's it's a quarter of a mile from the sea.
So it's your most accessible and easily resourced food source.
Yeah.
And yet there are no fish remains in...
I think they're doing shellfish.
Yes.
And stuff like that.
But not fish.
Right.
And the extension of that was, again, Michael was saying that point out that there's no human burials up there. Now, to a degree, when you bear in mind that you're talking about solid rock, it's not soil, it's solid rock, that, okay, it's not like they could dig a grave, but there's no signs of cremations either.
And no mounds, which is the other way of doing it.
Yeah. So possibly, and this is only us conjecturing, that, well, if it meant that maybe you were putting people, in what we associate with Viking burials or whatever, you're putting someone on a pyre and pushing them out to sea, that it's actually sea burials all the time. Then maybe they didn't eat fish because the fish are eating the remains of your ancestors, and therefore you don't want to be eating your ancestors. Maybe it's possible. Maybe I just find it astonishing in a place where you could get fish so easily that there's none of it in their middens. Amazing.
And because just, oh God, how far is it? It's a mile or two down the road.
Yes.
Along the coast is the Tomb of the Eagles.
Yeah.
Which is Neolithic initially, but then in the Iron Age, contemporary with when these brochs were being inhabited, that's when the eagles, sea eagles, were put into these
it's another reason
graves.
Why the timelines are so exciting, because all these aspects of prehistory, and we tend to have them all lumped together. They're just things that we know. So you hear about the Tomb of the Eagles, and I think we all imagine that the Tomb of the Eagles, that was a place where humans and eagles were buried together. It was thousands of years before eagles had anything to do with the site.
So,
What do you say?
So Graham says, do bear in mind that fish take...
Yeah, Jesse Graham, the scientist in our midst. Yes.
Shay says, wasn't the consumption of fish low in the Neolithic in general? That's a good point. Not something I can...
Do you know what? Was it?
We don't know.
Was it? Because the consumption of shellfish wasn't.
No, never that. But
Shellfish was always high.
It's a very good question.
It is a good question. Who said that?
Shay. Who else but Shay?
Well, Shay knows more than we do about food.
Shay knows a lot more than we do about anything, I think. Good line of inquiry. Thank you, Shay.
It's actually very interesting. But
sky burials, lots of sea eagles, says Amber Ann. Yes.
Well, it is possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it is interesting that the eagles didn't appear in the Tomb of the Eagles until that much later.
Yeah.
And you can imagine all sorts of things around that. Partly, sky burials is a very interesting thought, and I've always imagined sky burials to be quintessentially a Himalayan thing.
Oh, really? There's lots of talk about sky burial and excarnation.
Well, excarnation,
round about the Tomb of the Eagles. Well, yes, but whether you present the corpse to the skies on a timber frame so that the raptors can carry the flesh away. Yeah,
I'll buy that. I just never thought about it.
I have to get the book out. Where is it? It's just
what, this one?
Yes, we'll look in there later. Ronnie Adams asks, can we please get an interview with Julian Cope on
Do you know what?
podcast?
I'm not going to tell you a lie. I've sent an email to Julian Cope because we've had communication in the past.
Yeah.
I did email him. I don't know if he didn't receive it, but Bugger hasn't replied. So maybe we'll track him down for an interview
one day, but it takes him replying.
Maybe I just fell into the gaps of the gazillion people who were asking him questions about music. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll try that again. We have thought about it. We've got a list of good people that we want to interview. So
Graham Smith, shellfish are collected by hand. Have you tried sea fishing? Even with modern tackle, it's not that easy.
Well,
it's true.
Sea fishing, yes, but there are an awful lot of ways of because they weren't shabby with nets.
No.
And
how are we doing that? Because we don't. Well, we're doing the timeline, and we know that nets were being used.
Yes, they were from a long, long time ago.
Mm.
There's all sorts of ways of. I would have thought in an island environment they would have been fairly adept at that.
And again, if something presents as a food source, then there's little to stop human beings actually utilising the resource. Unless the land-based animals were providing everything that was needed. If there's no need for further expand your diet, then hey ho, you may have a point.
You're absolutely right though about the shellfish side of it. In fact, you know what? There are a series of mounds in Florida, and these look like hills.
Yes.
And the culture, and I can't for the life of me remember offhand the name of the culture, but these things look like hills, but actually they're middens, and they lived on top of the mountains that they created from shellfish. That's astonishing, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's food is definitely something we ought to look into more. In fact, we could make that the theme of the podcast. Actually,
we could actually. Food. Good idea.
Because we'd have to do some.
Thank you, fans.
Yeah,
yes,
we'd have to do some field work. Mike hates fish.
No, I hate them. But, they're not like you. They're not first on the.
They're not first
choice
on the
on
list,
the
no.
menu. Catherine, maybe they thought their ancestors came back as fish, so that's why they didn't eat them. Maybe. Yes. Perfectly possible.
It is possible.
Can't rule it out.
It wouldn't be progress, though, would it?
No. But, it's funny how, as humans, we get taboos.
Yeah, that's true. But
And, once it's there, it's very difficult to break. So, who knows?
But Uncle Bob got reincarnated and got a hook in his mouth. That's not really progress, is it?
What? Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, okay. So Graham says, quite a few people. I know, quite a few people who know me Cope.
Mr.
Or
Cope,
rather,
I think
Mr.
he means.
Cope.
Mr. Cope.
Mr. Cope.
Yes.
Yes, made himself laugh.
Yeah, well, Graham, if any of you can badger him more readily
for sure.
than we, do that thing.
Mm.
Tell him we've called him rude publicly.
Mm, mm. Oh, that was the point. Actually, Margaret makes a very good point. Very good question.
Drag it onto the thing so people can read it then.
Yes. In this, it was not the absence of remains of fish bones and things like that. It was the isotope analysis of some of the physical remains, not from burials, because there are human bones, but not interred human bones remains. The isotope analysis told them they were not eating fish at all.
Okay, well
Yeah.
that's as telling, if not more so.
Yeah.
We like isotope analysis.
Yeah. Yeah. They weren't frightened of their oyster shells and stuff like that. Okay, cool. I'm glad that this is all proving very interesting. Ricky, so glad you find what we're doing interesting. And
Thank you.
Great. He's been called worse because it was Mr. Cope. Thought that was a Mars bar.
What did Rosie say that you've just flicked past?
Rosie. Oh yes. Here's me not liking fish too much, and my ancestors were Manxmen. Rosamond,
Maybe
my
that's
sister there, Rosie, is if you can find her on Facebook, and you need a bit of genealogy doing. Where's she gone? That's my sister. She's a genealogist. If you want to look back into your ancestry, she's your lady. But yes, some of our Manx ancestors were fishermen. There's me not liking
Fond
fish
of a kipper
too
then.
much. Yeah, not too much. Still, I wouldn't choose them off a menu necessarily.
No, nor me.
Just for maybe.
I'll eat them, but I tell you what, I've never understood people who have kippers for breakfast.
No, I don't think I have.
No.
Dorman says maybe they made bone meal fertilizer. Wouldn't put it beyond them.
Interesting.
At all.
I'll tell you something that I was looking into not that long ago, because our side project, we've got another book in the brewing that's going to be a couple of years away before it actually hits the shelves, but it's happening. And I was looking into food and middens, and why coastal middens are very common. Inland middens not so much, and the reason is that they used to create midden piles, often burnt. They would burn them, and then they would just plough them in. They just work them into the ground as a natural fertilizer. So there's no traces of it for us because they just used it year on year on year.
That's one huge aspect of. I don't think it's quite so ubiquitous as anywhere else, as on Orkney, because of these stone buildings and middens used to pile up beside them. This is evident at Cairns Broch and Broch, and of course here at the Cairns Broch, you get massive
the stink.
Midden remains. Yes,
Can you imagine the stink. Must have been unbelievable. It's something. It's always in my
You're
head.
welcome, Rosie.
The notion of you go back to any point in history before we had the notion that showering was a good idea, and you just think, Wow. Can you imagine going into a tavern in 1350? BO, bad breath, the smell of the toilets outside, if there was a toilet outside, and if there wasn't, it was just where people were going in the bushes. God, it must have been eye-watering everywhere.
Yeah. It's bad enough without my dog under the
I wasn't going to say anything.
Under the desk here with his bone.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah, he's But he seems to enjoy it as it gets progressively riper.
Actually, some of the remains, not only at the Broch but elsewhere, you tend to get remains of animal bones just tucked into the corners of floors and stuff like that. Well, our dogs. That's what dog. This is what a dog does under there.
That is a very interesting point, isn't it? Really, that why is that there? It's because an animal put it there. It's a good point.
Smell would draw other predators. Might want to keep this place away from. No, the midden was all part and parcel of the. It was all lived amongst, cleared out occasionally, and but it was all part of it. I think the one implication at Skara Brae is that the piling of the midden against the walls and being a bit thinner than at Cairns Broch provides some kind of insulation.
Yeah, and probably decomposition would have created heat as well. So,
Yep. Too true. Amberan says, "Come to Flirtwood. Find Mount Welsh shellfish smell like." Can't wait. So, anyway, gosh, thank you so much for all your questions and comments, guys. Anything else you'd like to ask, don't feel free. So we've just passed the hour mark. We have been broadcasting.
Have we already?
For an hour, yeah. That's including the 5-minute intro thing.
Wow.
So,
I was having fun.
Is there anything else we must be careful not to miss before we pass?
We've plugged the tour.
Pass on. We've plugged the tour.
Tell you what we're doing tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, yes. Say what we're doing tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow we're going up to. We're going to say hello to Arbelow.
Yeah.
But the real reason we're going up to Arbelow is that we've spotted on Google Earth. Actually, we're just looking for stuff generally. In fact, from a practical point of view. Do you know what? We should drag that on as well in a minute.
Okay. We've just noted your question, Jason, or your comment, Jason.
Yeah. It was from a practical point of view. It's because we were talking about the tour.
And Ricky, sorry, we've noticed your question. We'll come to it in a second.
Yes. Because of the tour in September, and I was looking at places along the route to make sure that there were places that we could park a coach.
Yeah.
So I was looking at Arbelow to make sure that wasn't going to be a problem. And as I was just wandering around the landscape, having a look, and spotted, not that far away from Arbelow, what looks like it might be a henge in the crop markings. Might be.
Yeah.
It's not marked as anything. It's just that's what it looks like in the crop markings. So we're going to go over there and have a look, take the drone out, and try to get an aerial look at it. And it might turn out to be nothing, but it's definitely worth a look, because you just never know what you're going to find.
Absolutely. So, Arbelow is our destination tomorrow.
Yes.
Bit of drone footage, bit of vlogging, I expect, will go on. And we'll see what we shall see.
Very frustrating. We were hoping
back.
that we were going to be able to hook up with Jeff Watson, who some of you will know.
Yeah,
Jeff is our
don't know if Jeff you're about
our
watching.
Flint Napper friend.
Say hello if you are.
In fact, a lot of you will have seen on his within the community, if you've been following that he posts pictures of the particularly flint arrowheads that he makes. Astonishing work, and Jeff lives up there. We were hoping we'd meet up with him, but sadly he can't make it because he's got to work, for God's sake.
So dealing with these questions in chronological order,
Go on,
Ricky
then.
Friend says, I was at Cauldron Stones in Kitts County earlier. What's your take on... I'll put it on the screen.
What's our take on the Medway megaliths?
Whoa,
wow, that's a question to end the show with.
We
isn't it?
have been to the Chestnuts,
Yes.
and we've been to Cauldron. I don't
Yes.
think we made it to Kitts County.
Not on this trip. No, was
no.
there some years back, but we
that's
didn't.
right.
It didn't get included into our travels. What's our take on them? Well, I think an important thing to say about any of them is that when the dating was done, in those of you that followed the interviews and stuff, we did an interview with Bettina Schultz Poulsen, and all her work showing that the megalithic culture spread out from northern France. And one of the things that came out of that dating was that Cauldron is actually the oldest megalithic burial site in Britain.
The oldest human remains
The oldest
in
human
a
remains in a burial
like
Yes.
that, in Britain.
Which is major,
Yeah.
actually. Cauldron, of all places. The thing that I was absolutely blown away with about any of the Medway tombs, though, is the Chestnuts, the scale of it.
Mm.
How big must that long barrow have been?
Oh, yeah, it's mammoth.
If you can call it a long barrow passage tomb. What was it technically called, apart from a Medway tomb? I
I don't know. Chamber? Is it? No, it's definitely long barrow.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you know what's in a
generically
name?
speaking.
Massive thing.
And I don't know if you've been lucky enough to get to the Chestnuts because it's in a private garden back of someone's house.
Yes, and the previous owner, who I'm presuming that maybe she died because she wasn't a young woman when we went.
Yeah.
But we've been told that you can no longer visit the place.
Yeah.
Which,
I think you can. I don't know.
Can you?
It's confusing.
I don't know.
Better check though. If you're trying to visit the Chestnuts, better use that internet thing and find out if you can get access.
So I don't actually know if that answers your question at all, Ricky. I mean, what's our take on them? They're pretty damned impressive.
And they're pretty damned important too.
Indeed, very old.
In terms
Very
of dating of the megalithic, Neolithic and stuff.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to Jason's question?
Go on then, because otherwise we could talk about that for another half
So
hour.
Jason, yes, went to Andy Burnham's megalithic portal talk at Llangollen, asked the question about the petrified wood pillar, and he says it's not a petrified wood pillar, and
Yes.
he's correct.
He is correct. And in fact, this is something that we you do your best. We put it on. Obviously, it was in the film, and we then spent I don't know 3-4 years looking into that, trying to get some sort
Asking
of
questions.
information.
And how slowly did the answers come back?
Oh God, torturous. Anyway, eventually, and in fact, was it Dr. Fionn Reynolds that she went there with? Wasn't it?
I think it was Dr. Reynolds that I think was instrumental. Mainly.
So she got
in
a
pointing us
geologist
in the
there.
right
Anyway,
direction. Yeah.
thing was that I actually put an update on my own website, rupertsoskin.com. In one of my blog entries, there's an update on that. Did we put it on the Standing with Stones site? I thought we did, but I don't actually
one
remember.
of our very first podcasts was all about that. Updating Brinketley Deed.
Do you know what? That was only 16 months ago, and I'd completely forgotten.
Yeah.
The update on Brinketley. So, no, basically, it's a blue schist, and the reason that it looks like a tree trunk is because this kind of rock only occurs in the subduction zones of tectonic plates. So basically, where you've got one plate, where you've got one plate going underneath another, and what makes this rock so extraordinary is that it's the pressures that make it happen. So it's a bit like rolling a stick of rock, and it happens at comparatively low temperatures. It's like the sort of temperatures that you'd cook your Sunday roast in your oven. But the pressures are so great that it rolls the rock up, which then pushes it back up to the surface. And because those textures are natural, it's rolled in a cylindrical form. So, no, it's not a tree trunk, but it looks like a tree trunk, and that's it, undoubtedly. Can I say undoubtedly? Yeah. Why the builders of Bryn Celli would have thought it was a magical thing, because it looks like a stone tree.
Yeah, it is absolutely fascinating. If you ever, it's difficult to tell from photographs, but if you actually find yourself in that chamber in Bryn Celli, and you bring the idea in your mind that is wood, once you've seen it that way, you can't unsee it. It's so blimmin' obvious that it's a fossilized tree trunk. The way
it really
the
is.
mind
it's
takes the
important.
information in without reference to geology and all the stuff that we have access to now. That we couldn't unsee it from that moment.
No, well, the thing is, I've done from my, because before I was really involved, we were involved in any of this particular archaeological stuff. I'd done a lot of geological stuff in the past, and I've seen a lot of fossil tree trunks. I just saw another one, and what made it so screamingly obvious to me? Okay, wrongly, but what made it so obvious to me was that all the textbooks, all of them, bar none, talk about a carefully dressed pillar of stone, and a carefully dressed pillar of stone means that it was cut to be that shape. And when you actually go and look at it, you can see people are just saying what everybody else has said. When you look at it, you can see, well, damn that, you can't cut that. There's no way that's cut. It's a natural cylinder. And whatever forms as a natural cylinder, apart from a tree.
But Shay makes the absolute point there. Although it is not a fossilized tree trunk, it is still massively significant, because, as Shay says, they would have thought it was, as we did, that it was a fossilized tree trunk.
Well,
so
that is indeed what I wrote in the book, Standing with Stones.
Have that huge... Kieran, yes, it is live. Please feel free to comment or ask questions if you wish. We are still live.
Yes, we are. Yeah. No, that's the point. That it doesn't, in many ways, it doesn't matter whether it is or whether it isn't a fossil tree trunk. The point is, that's what they would have thought it was. Which makes it all the more, kind of obvious of why it would have such a central position of importance.
Absolutely. A couple more question or two come in. Jeff saying gutted he can't meet us tomorrow.
Yeah, us too,
I saw
Jeff.
Sinead earlier says that she's it's her neck of the woods. Might see us there.
Okay.
Sinead, Maria. Jeff can't be there.
That's a shame. We will hook up at some point, Jeff.
Yes, we're live. Oh, hello from Tintagel then, Kieran. Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, down there in Cornwall.
What a beautiful part of the world.
Tintagel.
Yes,
fantastic.
we do.
Yes. Can we move there one day? No, it was Ricky again.
Tintagel, it's a long drive from anywhere.
Huh?
It's a long drive from anywhere.
It is. No, it's Ronnie.
Apart from Boscastle, I suppose.
Further to his questions about the Medway things, what are opinions on Men Toll? There's not a lot that can be said with any certainty at all. I won't tell you a lie, Ricky. I don't really have an opinion on Men and Toll. I think it's a bit of a mess, really. Because there's no way of establishing whether it was put that way that many thousands of years ago.
That's true, but it's one of the things that we should never really discount is that I often make the distinction that I am really fascinated by the foibles of man. I'm not remotely interested in the foibles of men. if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And so if you culturally, you look across Britain or the whole of Europe, and you look at styles of megalith building, and you see all these commonalities that you can see were a cultural wave of whether it went from long barrows to round barrows or whatever. You can see this cultural way of doing things. When you have a site that is a complete one-off, like Menontal, then you can't discount the fact that it might just have been, the one bloke, the chief of the tribe, who just, he'd made up his own little game of throwing stones through hoops or whatever, and they made it his burial. Well, let's do one of those for him. I mean, I know I'm just making that up, but what I'm saying is it might be something that really is something that was a very personal thing about one person, and actually has no kind of overall cultural relevance at all. We have no way of knowing. I don't think it's been excavated, has it?
No, I don't. But I think I remember when we were there filming that we did remark, and if you look on the ground around the monument, it
one might be.
It is particularly stony. I don't know if it's been suggested by anybody before, but I remember discussing whether we'd been inspired by something else we'd read, or we were just inspired by, looking at the ground around it, that it looks like it was originally a mound, that the stones would have been covered, and maybe there was a burial in there.
Oh, I think that's distinctly possible, but it still leaves you with the anomaly of what is that hoop, what's the ring about?
Completely. And not forgetting that we're completely lacking any context for Menontal, because so many of the stones have been taken away that would have been around that place.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because if you walk away from Menontal, as you're walking away from it, look at the farm walls, because the farm walls are absolutely stuffed full of big monoliths that clearly came from something. And okay, you can't say for sure that they were actually part of the Menontal structure, but I bet they were. Yeah, and there's one little stump of a stone just a few metres away from the monument. I don't know if that's the remainder, indeed, of perhaps of a stone circle. If you search the internet, there is a photograph of me reclining against said stone, looking like I've swallowed the central ring. Yes. It's true.
Yeah,
I mean, Shay's saying male and female. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's in fact one of the funny things when we were at Menontal was a couple of hippies came up, and one bloke was actually really quite scathing, wasn't he, about the fact that we didn't know what it was about, and he proceeded to tell us a whole load of mumbo jumbo of what he thought it was about, as if we should have known that.
Yeah, you know what? Talking of Cornwall, Kieran, I think maybe we should go back and do a Cornwall special one day.
We should do a Cornwall special. We should do a Dartmoor special.
Yeah,
we should certainly do a Hebrides special.
Well, Scott's just saying.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did one podcast some months back. We did a podcast about Dartmoor.
We did two specialised area podcasts, one on Dartmoor, one on Cumbria. Yeah. But talking about filming, yes, these are.
Ronnie says Cornwall, please.
It's and we've got to be careful because we don't want to sort of do Standing with Stones again about this. Bearing in mind that to a certain extent we did do the places, but I think there's a certain updates that can be made that can make any filming fresh.
And also we're cleverer.
We're cleverer. We've got better tech.
We're cleverer now, so we could probably tell you more.
David Potter is with us. He has come away from work. He has probably got himself the sack by coming away from work early. Your dedication is appreciated,
David. Look, it's a bit late in the day, David, to be rocking the boat and causing trouble. But
yes,
Mike's just back from Orkney, where he was excavating Cairns Broch. There's a souterrain.
I can show. David. I can show.
There's a souterrain. We were talking about it earlier and said David can't make it tonight.
So, Anybody else watching? David, who's just David Potter, who's just joined us.
David has been with us for a very long time.
Yeah,
in the community. So.
Martin says an Aberdeen recumbent stone circle special. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I presume, Martin, that you've seen the whole Standing with Stones film. You know, we did quite a number on the recumbents in that. But David, to the point. David likes
F word. F word coming.
Fugus.
I don't care what you call them.
David, correct me on this pronunciation, but we're talking about
generic. I thought it was a fugu.
Souterrains.
Yeah.
Okay. At the Cairns Broch, David, on Orkney, South Ronaldsay, which I was digging at last week, there is a souterrain, and I'm going to switch back. Sorry, forgive me, guys. You've seen this before. I'm sure you'll be thrilled to see it again. Is the 3D representation of the Cairns Broch, with the 5 metre thick walls around the central area. Now, when this place was decommissioned, we talked about this earlier, when this place was taken down, not demolished, it was taken down with respect to make way for the next thing. David, can you see this thing here? I'm moving my cursor up and down it. That is a souterrain. I'm not going to call it a fugu.
A rose by any other name.
But there it is. And not only that, it turns sharp right up here under what was the original entrance to the Broch. So there it goes. There is your Orkney, South Ronaldsay, Orcadian souterrain. Are you thrilled? It's gone awfully quiet.
It's a fantastic thing to see. It really is. But,
Martin says he got the DVD in 2009 and have watched it many times.
So good.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Any creeps? What do you mean, any creeps? Does we know? What do you? What? Sorry, you're exposing our ignorance. As you know.
Any creeps? Is he talking about creep? Is he talking about people, or is he talking about the possibility of creeping through the souterrain?
Through the souterrain? No, I didn't. I did go down the well, but I didn't. Crepes. Suzette. Crepes. Creeps.
That's pancakes.
Oh, that's Paul. Sorry, Paul. Creeps or crepes.
Yeah.
So, hello, Paul. Didn't know you were there. Yeah, that's it. So that souterrain was covered over with stone slabs. Crypt.
Oh, creeps. Okay.
Well, that's Ronnie. That's not.
No, I don't know.
David.
All right. Well, whilst waiting for Potter to. Yeah.
So I thought you'd be interested anyway. Thought I'd show you that, David. All right. Crypts.
No, we would love to do more specials around. Yeah, you're not helping.
Creeps. Creeps. Jeff says creeps are passageways leading in.
Oh.
I can't answer that neither in the affirmative or the negative.
By the look of that wall, no.
I don't know, but it's not easy to see because the excavation isn't complete. But the yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Anything else we need to say?
No, not really. I mean, we would love to do more, particular
tales
specials.
from the creps.
Yeah. No, stop it.
Radiohead.
Yes.
Nice one, guys.
No, just you know what we need budget. We need funding for all these things. They cost us money.
That's it. Do you know what, guys? It's a really good point. sharing our stuff as much as you can, getting the podcasts, helping get the podcasts and the films out there, because our Patreon supporters are, to a certain extent, our lifeblood, and having the support from Patreon and expanding that is our aim, is to make this our full-time job, so that we're always creating films, always feeding information via podcasts, always illuminating stuff as the best we can. Popping up here and we do the podcasts regularly, but not enough. Our popping up here is quite itinerant. It's dependent on, we're so we have work, and it's not regular, so sometimes we're quiet and sometimes we're not, and it's all a bit lumpy. We don't want it to be lumpy. We want to be doing a proper job here. So that's what our goal is as far as Patreon is concerned. Anyway, you can help, guys, if not by being a direct supporter on Patreon, but by spreading the word about and stuff like that on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, indeed. And any advice, actually, as far as social media is concerned and expanding our reach. Any of you have expertise in these areas, do feel free to get in contact and have your say.
Yes.
Any advice
I'm
received?
going to directly reply to a couple of these. Shay says let's hook up on Dartmoor.
Yes.
We are actually thinking very seriously about doing a Dartmoor tour. It would be a great one to do. And Anais says come to the Iberian Peninsula.
Oh, what?
Do you know what, Anais? We have been looking at as you know, I'm southern Spain. I'm southern France, but going down into Spain.
And we need a Spanish guide, wouldn't we?
We would need a Spanish guide. But some of the sites in Spain are phenomenal. I particularly want to go and visit El Romeral, which is down south. Phenomenal structures, they really are.
So no end of stuff that we can be doing, and no end of avenues that will open up. Somewhere more central would be good for me to meet up. Yay. We must throw this out, this thing about meeting up. What's ideal? We can't be ideal for everybody. That's the problem. We can't.
No, it is one of
everybody.
one of the problems of having a community that is so widespread. I mean, it's going to be tricky for our American friends and Canadian friends, particularly, and people like Jacek over in Poland.
Yeah.
Yes, and obviously Anais down in Spain.
Yeah. Fabulous. Okay, so we've been broadcasting for nearly an hour and a half now.
Yes.
And I think from our point of view, we've said most of what we've said. We've covered what we're doing next. That I'm up on. We're making a film in France next, and I'm going to be on the Sisters Dig, and then we're doing the tour. Yeah.
And we're doing the tour.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spread, even if you can't be on the tour yourself, do spread word about the tour. There, I think as we speak, there are 7 places left on the tour from September the 7th to the September the
21st.
21st. Yeah. So there are links to that everywhere. Dave McDermott. Yeah, a little video, Dave, about my little video. There's a little video I have of Merivale just tracking down between the stones. It's gone viral on Twitter.
A pretty thing it is too.
Yeah. Nice. I think it's time to say goodbye.
It's time to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Now is the time to say goodbye.
And if you've got any last question you wish to type it now or forever. Well, not forever. But,
now is the time to yield aside.
And if you've got any questions that occur to you, don't after this broadcast is over, you can post them down below, and we'll consider them for inclusion in the podcast. Yay!
We like questions. Do send us questions, folks.
Spread the word. That's the thing, Kieran. Bless you. Thank you. Yeah. Martin, glad you've enjoyed it. Diorman, yeah, you're welcome, Diorman.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
Night, night, fellas. Night, night, guys.
We'll
Night,
see you
night,
very
guys
soon.
and girls. Bye-bye.
Bye.